Yeah, all right. Yeah. I grew up poor. I've said this before. My family was the family that would come to the clothing ministry at the church to get clothes, and we would take home food from the clothing, the food drive place, and we just, it wasn't, as a kid, you don't think about whether you're poor or rich. You're just a kid who's living life, having fun, shooting guns with sticks and stuff, That's kind of how kids live life, and so I didn't really know that until I went over to a friend's house one time, and my friend was like, it's funny, I didn't think about how we had just devoured every piece of food in the refrigerator. Anybody had those teenagers at your house before? Yeah? There's like pizza wrappers and all kinds of stuff, just littered burritos, those frozen burritos, those wrappers are littering the floor. The microwave has not stopped since we got out of school. We're just microwaving and eating stuff. And so I didn't think about the fact that we were just eating, like devouring hundreds of dollars worth of food from this family's fridge. But what hit me was my buddy went over and he was like, you guys want something to drink? And he grabbed a gallon of milk and he just poured himself the tallest glass of milk I've ever seen. Does anybody like to do that? You just love to enjoy a big, tall, ice-cold glass of milk, right? Yeah, some of you do. In my family, that was heresy. You would be kicked out of the family and kicked to the curb. If you drank milk, just drink milk. Anybody grow up in that family? Yeah, yeah, okay. See, because in my family, milk was for things like cooking, or maybe you got a little bit in your cereal, but milk was it was like in the fridge, it had its own shelf, and there was like, it was like an eye, there was like, whoa, you'd open it, and angels would sing, and it was the milk, and the eggs, and the ham, and that stuff, and you didn't touch it. This was because we were poor, and for us, a gallon of milk was expensive. I remember eating just sandwiches for like 62 days straight. In the city, you get one little piece of meat on it. Did anybody have that? And if you were lucky, there was cheese in the fridge, and you got to put cheese on it. And if you were really lucky, there was Miracle Whip, and it was like, oh, again. But in my family, this milk substance stuff, it just was like out of my way of even thinking about life, that somebody could just sit down and they could afford to just pour a giant glass of milk and just drink it. Anybody identify with that level of like, maybe for you, that's like, you're looking at me and you're going, Kent, you don't even know. I know some of you told me you grew up with dirt floors in your house, and you really were like literally dirt poor, right? So I just want to, for a moment, tell you this sermon is not necessarily about being poor and how if you're poor you get out of that. But I did want to really bring up this concept and this idea that there are people who live in a way that some of you may have no concept of what it's like to live like that. Some of you may just drink a glass of milk, and for you it's just a glass of milk. It really hit me when I was an adult. We had kids, and we were having our kid's birthday party, and there was this friend of mine who would come over to our house. And we're cutting the cake and handing out cake. We're like, hey, you want some cake? And this buddy would be like, oh, I can't eat cake without milk. And I was like, what? You can't eat your cake, man. You don't get any of my milk. And he'd be like, no, I have to have milk. And so I would catch him sneaking into my refrigerator and just this kid. He would like find the biggest cup he could find and fill it up with milk. And he would drink it. And internally, I'm like, oh yeah, just have as much milk as you want. But internally, that little kid who fights for the milk is raising up. This is the kind of person we are about to encounter. This is a person who has to count and pinch every single penny. And some of you, don't hear me saying that this is bad. It is a blessing. Some of you have not had to do that. And that is a tremendous blessing in your life. And I thank God for that. But some of you know exactly what that's like. Some of you are going, amen, hallelujah, glory, brother. I'm right. You're living that life right now, right? This is where you live right now. So in a moment, we're going to jump into Luke chapter 21, if you want to get there. And we are going to encounter this woman. And my guess is, most of you, especially if you grew up in church most of your life, you know this woman. She is somebody who is familiar to you. You've heard her story a million times. You've watched her, as you've grown up. You've thought about this story. And it's kind of old hat for you. My hope is this morning that we'll breathe a little bit of life into it. Yeah? All right? Luke chapter 21, where we're coming into, it is the last week of Jesus' life. Now this is an important week in Jesus' life. He is finally turning on all like 8 cylinders of his ministry. He is not pulling any punches. You might remember early on Jesus would heal somebody and he would say, don't tell anybody what happened, right? Because Jesus wasn't ready to unleash the full potential, because he knew that what he was doing was so threatening to the religious leaders of that day that that they were going to try to kill him if he let it out too early what was really happening and who he really was. He is, at this point, no longer holding back. He's going full guns ablaze into the situation, and he is just like, he's not holding back whatsoever. We'll look at that in just a moment. But Jesus is, in his last week, he has left, we're about to approach this moment where he has left the temple proper, kind of the inside place where only men could go in the temple. He is leaving it for the last time as a teacher. He is going to go into this place that was called the Court of Women. The Court of Women there was the Court of Gentiles. There's kind of this outside ring. And if you weren't a Gentile, just means not a Jew. All right? Everybody say, not a Jew. All right, you now know what a Gentile is, okay? So they would go from the not a Jew ring, the Court of Gentiles, and then from in there, women and men could go in if they were Jewish, and that ring was called the Court of Women. And then there was an inner place that was just the temple court, and only Jewish men could go into this area. Jesus has left that area, and he has gone into the Court of Women. There are no Gentiles around. And this is the place where there are these 13 bronze trumpets. Imagine, they're big, they have a small opening, they go down, and they have kind of a trumpet shape. And on each of these trumpets is a different type of offering that can be left. And so what would happen is Jewish people would come in, Jewish followers would come in, and they would take their tithes and their offerings. And then can you imagine if our offering plates didn't have a little padded thing in there and everybody had to give him coins, all right? Just about, see, you could measure by how long the clanking went, how much somebody gave, right? So you clink, and you're like, ooh, that guy's rich, right? Then somebody else, and you're like, oh, that guy's got middle class, sorry. And so Jesus, this is what I love about Jesus. He comes into the situation, he leaves the temple courts, he goes to the Court of Women, and he comes out and he sits with his disciples out in front of the offering place, and he just watches, right? How would you like it if your pastor watched you give watched you as you gave your offering today, right? Jesus sits there and he watches, and I picture him like picking his fingernails, and he's talking, and he's kind of teaching, and he's kind of waiting, and up into this situation, this is what happens. John chapter 21, Jesus standing in front of these 13 offering coffers, and this is the situation we find ourselves in. As Jesus looked up, he saw the rich putting in their gifts into the temple treasury, right? You can hear it. You just let yourself for a moment be a kid again and use your imagination. I'm not good at change noise on bronze, but you get the picture. He saw the rich putting their gifts into the temple treasury. Verse 2, he also saw a poor widow put in 2 very small copper coins. These small copper coins, the word for them, the English word is kind of mite. I don't know. It really just literally means like a shaving off of a metal coin. That's what they were worth, 1/64th of a day's wage. So if you can imagine, 1/64th of your entire day's wage is what this woman has. She has 2 of those. She has 2/64ths. That's 1/30. Somebody 32nd. Thank you, Levi. See, this is why I'm a pastor. All right, just not a math guy. 1/32nd of a day's wage. This woman puts in 2 pennies. Really not even worth counting, right? This woman comes up, and if you can just for a moment put yourself, I want you to get the pictures and the sounds in your head. You've got every person who is a Jew who's come to the temple to worship is in this area. They are walking around. You can hear the bleating of lambs. You can smell the fire and the incense that goes up for prayer at the temple, right? You can hear people bustling and talking, and different people there's been an excitement in the temple area because it's Passover time. Jesus has come, and just a few days earlier, he was coming into town on a donkey, and people were taking palm branches and laying them down, and they were saying, Hosanna, Hosanna, right? This is the way you treat a king coming into his town where he's from, right? He's coming into Jerusalem. They're treating him like a king. This is got to be throwing the Romans off, because the Romans were always looking for the Jewish people in uprisings. So they would send extra soldiers during the time of the Passover. This is an intense moment. And here is this poor woman. Nobody notices her. Nobody sees her. She walks up, and I just picture her being kind of old, and maybe she's a widow. She has nothing. I picture her being in kind of bedraggled clothing. Yeah, it's got holes in it. It's been washed 1,000,000 times on the rocks, and she just looks like she's tired and worn out. And she's hobbling up. There's all these people. She's probably embarrassed because all of these people are going up and they're dropping. It wouldn't have been, I don't think it was a big showy thing, but it was obvious when somebody gave a lot of money, right? Because it just kept going and kept going, the noise and sound. And this poor old widow, can you picture? She walks up, she pulls out her little bag. She pulls out her 2 pennies. She just humbly drops them in. Clink, clink. Picture her. Jesus says this, verse 3. Truly I tell you, he said, this poor widow has put in more than all the others. Just for a minute. Take yourself out of being the person who's heard this story for a million times. Be his disciple for a moment, who hears him first. Jesus, you are nuts. He does this all the time, right? Jesus is always saying crazy things. You're saying that, well, I'm pretty sure she just put in a mic, Jesus, because I know the claim of a mic. But Jesus, you're saying she has given more than all the others. You are saying that plink plink is greater than, right? Plink plink is greater than cha-ching cha-ching. Yeah? You just need to hear Jesus for what he is. You've got to take away all the years and the layers of how many times you've heard this story, and you need to hear what he's saying. He is saying that her little tiny bit, the amount that's not even worth counting, the treasurer is just going to go, well, yeah, it's just a couple pennies, right? That amount, he says, was greater than all the others. Now, Jesus is so sharp. He is, in just a moment, he is going to cut through to the heart of this thing, and it's going to expose itself. But for a moment, you have to imagine his disciple, Judas looks over and, right? And the other guys are like, he's going to have to save himself on this one, because people are listening to him. We'll find in just a moment that he's been teaching, right? Listen to what he says. This poor widow has put in more than all the others. All these people gave their gifts out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on. You guys know the story, don't you? You didn't need me to say it. You already knew what was coming. They all gave out of their wealth, and she gave just her last 2 pennies. It was all she had. We don't know if Jesus knew her. We don't know how he knew for sure that these were her last 2 pennies, but somehow Jesus knows, and he looks at her and he said, she gave everything, and they gave just a little bit out of their wealth. This is normally, let me just say this is normally where a pastor preaches a sermon on God is not looking at what you give, he's looking at what you've kept, right? That's the sermon you totally expect from this passage, isn't it? But I think Jesus is doing something deeper. I think Jesus is up to something that's even more profound. Now, don't hear me say that sermon is a bad sermon. It's actually a really good sermon. It's really on point, on target for this passage. But I think if you were to dig into this, and you were to look at the context, you would see Jesus doing something much more impressive in this moment. Would you go with me, turn backwards to Luke chapter 20, verse 45 to 47. Now, I kind of sometimes hate sometimes that we have it's nice to have the chapter breaks and to have the big numbers and the little numbers. And I know, so I can point you right to a specific passage. But sometimes we allow those things to divide how we read the scripture up in different categories. And we don't get the picture of the story. Listen to what has been happening right before this moment. While all the people were listening, Jesus said to his disciples, beware of the teachers of the law. I told you Jesus isn't pulling punches anymore, right? He is coming out full on swinging. I love, when I was in college, we would watch like MMA fighting and that kind of stuff. Anybody love to watch those kind of, just where people beat each other up? Teenagers are like, yeah, you know, that's right. I love watching people beat each other up. This is where Jesus comes out swinging, right? We don't feel it because we're sitting here reading in air conditioning and nobody is threatening our lives. But Jesus just said, we're in the place where the teachers of the law were the most comfortable. He stands up in the middle of church and says, beware of these guys. Beware of the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes. Can you picture these guys? They've got these big, long, beautiful robes on. They love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and have the most important seats in the synagogue and the places of honor and banquets. They, listen to this, they devour widows' houses. should underline that. They devour widows' houses, and for a show they make lengthy prayers. These men will be punished most severely. And then, the very next thing that you and I would read, if there was not a chapter break, would be, Jesus looked up and saw the rich putting in their graves. I want you to hear this. I think that Jesus is contrasting religious versus true religion. I think he is creating a contrast for the people in the middle of that crowd right then and there, and he is saying there is a difference between somebody who looks religious on the outside and somebody who is truly religious, right? Somebody who truly has true religion. James would say the true religion is to take care of the widows and the orphans. Yeah? This is what true religion is. These guys, if you got it right, these guys, they love to dress to impress. They're egotistical. They are coming up and they want you to look at them. They would have these things on their forehead that would have boxes that were scriptures in them. And they would try to make it was called a phylactery, and they'd try to make it really big, and they'd have one on their wrist. And it was so you'd know how spiritual they were. They would come in, and when they walked into a banquet, they expected to sit at the head of the table. Baby, you better let me sit right up there at the head because I'm a religious leader and I deserve it. Have you known religious leaders like this? These guys devoured poor widows' houses. These guys would get up to pray, and their prayers weren't about having a heart for God. Their prayers were about other people seeing them. Have you seen religious people like this? And Jesus takes these teachers who everybody held up as what I want to be. I want to be one of them. I want to be like Mike. You remember that? You remember Michael Jordan? I want to be like Mike. And they hold up this ideal of what it looks like to be religious, and Jesus just trashes it all. And he says, you don't try to be like that. If you want to be religious, I really think what he's trying to do is point to somebody who really gets it. And she is humble. She is unnoticed. She is the person that she has walked through this crowd. Nobody has even seen her. If anything, they've maybe tried to push her out of the way. And she is the person that Jesus points out. I want you to pick up how sharp our Jesus is. You see, he knew from the beginning of time that this woman was going to enter into this place at this exact moment. And he knew that the teachers of law, that everything would be coming up against him, and they'd all be building up against him, and that Jesus would have this one moment where he could point some two fingers like that, and everything would fall together. He's strategic, he's sharp, he knows what's happening, and this is the moment where nobody else is looking for this lady except for one guy, and his name is Jesus, and he points his finger at her, and he says, her, she is who you need to be like. It is not about being religious like these other people and having all this outward adornment. It is about what happens internally and how that plays out in your real world. You see, this is something that really stuck out to me, is that the world measures by power and popularity and how much of this you have in your pocket. Can I get an amen? That's how the world measures, isn't it? The people who write our books, the people that we all look at as success stories, they're not the poor people who are just working a hard day's labor and given everything they've got. It's the people who are powerful. Donald Trump is getting all this attention. The guy's kind of a goofball, right? I know a lot of you like him because he just says things, whatever he does. But sometimes it's not good too, right? Donald Trump is a little bit of a goofball. You know what? He's powerful and he's rich. And so he gets attention. He gets to buy. I think it's nice at least that somebody's buying the presidency honestly this time, right? They're not trying to buy a presidency behind walls. They're just like, well, I'll just pay for it for myself. That's real nice. Look, this Jesus that we encounter, he measures so differently. He doesn't measure by power, popularity, how much is in your pocket. He measures the motives of your heart, not your material wealth. And this is vital for us to understand. Jesus does not measure by the same thing the world measures by. You see, the world would have looked at those teachers of the law and they'd have said, they've got it. They're who we need to be like. They look the religious part. This woman? No, Jesus, she's poor, she's humble, she has nothing. You know, a widow in those days had nothing. Like when her husband died, the inheritance didn't go to her. She didn't get to keep what he had. That went to either his children or his family. She didn't get to keep any of that. So this woman has had to work, and likely you got paid every single day. So likely, since this is all she's putting in, all she has to put in, she's probably not making very much. Pennies maybe. Pennies. And this woman, in complete trust of God, puts her last 2 pennies in. You see, the one was looking to elevate themselves. The teachers of the law were looking to elevate themselves, right? Their motive, their heart was all about, everybody look at me. Everybody see how religious I look. Everybody look at how good I am at this stuff. And the other one, she was about elevating God. She was about elevating God. This morning, I was thinking about, this is strange to me. I don't know if this is strange to anybody else, but Jesus actually taught on money more than he taught on heaven and hell. Is that weird to you? The only thing that Jesus actually taught on more than money was the kingdom of God, which I love. I mean, that's weird. And I think it's because Jesus knew that there is something that competes with the kingdom of God. Yes? He said it this way. He said that wherever your treasure is, there your, does anybody know? Heart will be also, right? Wherever your treasure is, there will your heart be also. You see, I'm telling you, it is possible to not just treasure this stuff. These guys were treasuring power. They were treasuring the popularity, having people look at them and say their names, and having their names be on the front of their tongues every time they walked into a place. They loved sitting at the front of the table. But they also devoured widows' houses. And she gave everything, her last pennies, everything she had to live on. I want you to see the contrast of what Jesus is saying and what he's doing and how sharp he is in this moment. He explodes their worldview. And sometimes we don't see it because we're so caught up and have heard the story a million times. I know this sermon. I could preach it myself. Oh, how we would miss what Jesus is doing. I just want to ask you today. I had a very specific goal this morning. My goal was this. It was just singular in purpose. I wanted to get you and I to begin to evaluate the motivators of our heart. Let me say that again. I wanted to get you and I to begin to evaluate the motivators of our heart. What is it that drives you? Some of you, popularity has nothing to do with it. I was talking with some guys this morning, they said, I don't ever really think about what people think about me, right? I just am getting it done, right? Some of you are like that. Popularity doesn't drive you. Maybe power does. You love to be in charge and control. And you know it because if things start to go out of control and get chaotic, the person who craves power and control, you will know this because you will start to raise up your hackles and you will try to take back control. And you will do whatever it takes to get control of something. That's how you know if that's your thing. If it's the pocketbook, you likely are super good with money. And it's not a bad thing. Don't hear me say this is bad. It's only bad when these things begin to compete with God. He has created you with an eternal nature. The key is to learn how to not let those things be the motivator of your life, but instead to let the motivator be God, and you use these things for His kingdom and His purposes. Does that make sense? These things get demoted. But if money is the thing, if what's in your pocket drives you, you'll know, because every time your saving starts to go down a little bit, or you're not able to control the outcome of, a lot of this has to do with control. Every time you're asked to give money, you struggle with it. I heard a pastor who actually went to counseling. He's a pastor of a huge church. I think they have 70,000 people in their church now, right? He said, I went because I struggled with being generous. I couldn't give with a cheerful heart. And he said, I just struggled with it. And so I actually went to see a Christian counselor, and the guy said to me, is it because you don't trust God? Is it because you don't trust that God's big enough to take care of you? And he said that question ate at me, and it ate at me, and it ate at me. And he went back, and he changed how he did his life, changed the way he was generous with his time and money and everything. And his church now gives away every single resource that they create. They create it, and they give it away for free. And many of you may have something that is a result of that moment, of that counseling office where that guy asked the question. Because if you have the Bible app on your phone called YouVersion, you have something that is a result of a person dealing with what motivates their heart. and coming to grips with whether they really trust God or they trust their own ability to provide for themselves. Does that make sense to you? There are things that are competing for your attention, and God will not compete for them. Some of us deal with power, some of us it's our pocket, some of us it's our popularity. You need the crowd to be cheering for you. You need the crowd to be cheering for you. You need people to have your name on their lips. You need when you walked in to be recognized. And when you know, if you're this person, you know it, because when you walk into those crowds, when you walk into those rooms, you just want to leave and exit. You feel insecure. You feel like everything around you fails and falls. And you feel like you are a failure. And it's so egotistical because you think everybody is trying to keep away from you, right? They're just enjoying life. But the person who is all about popularity has to be the center of attention. I know this one well. I struggle with this one. I love being the center of attention. Thus, right? I struggle with it. And Jesus is right when he says, beware the teachers of the law, by the way. We don't have it all together. This is why you need to know Jesus, not me, not a youth pastor, not anybody else. You need to know him. That's where your relationship needs to lie, right? Man, folks, I just came in here with one single purpose. To get you to really evaluate what motivates your heart. Because here's, you may be going, well, what's the answer? They can't, there's these three, and there may be more, I've just kind of generalized them into the power, the popularity, and the pocket. I'll tell you what this lady did. Her motivation was pleasing God. Right? She just wanted to please God. That was it. This weekend, I was in Medicine Lodge for the peace treaty. Has anybody ever been to that peace treaty at Medicine Lodge? And they reenact this peace treaty that we signed with the Native Americans there. And it's huge. I mean, thousands of people come. And they have wagon trains and all this kind of stuff. I got to ride in the wagon train. And like when the Indians attacked, I was supposed to corral the horses, and instead I did. Yeah, I was like, I don't want. The horses were going to kill me, I thought. But because I'm not a cowboy. But it was super cool. It was a really fun weekend. Our kids got to be pioneers. And Jenny dressed like a pioneer. I dressed like this because evidently I already dressed like a pioneer. It was a blast. They had this thing. There's a thing called the Stockade in Medicine Lodge, and it's a place where like the kind of military had set up back in the 1800s. So you can go in and see stuff. And during this weekend, they had all these different booths there where you could experience what it was like to live in that day and age. And there was this guy, he's the rope man. I don't know if you've ever met him before, but he goes to fairs and stuff. He has a black derby hat, one of the big Abraham Lincoln hats. And he wears this black vest, and he has a nice white shirt underneath. He has a beautiful white beard. Oh man, as I envious of that sucker. And he's just this well-dressed, nice, friendly grandpa kind of guy. And he has this deal set up where there's this little thing over here, and there's a little thing over here, and they put some twine in between it, and they turn it, and it creates this rope, right? And so kids can come up and pay $7, and they get to make their own roping rope for roping horses and pretending to be cowboys. Super fun, right? Super fun. So our kids are making the rope, and I'm talking to the guy. His name turns out to be Buddy the rope man. And I'm talking to Buddy, and I'm asking him questions about the rope and stuff, and I find out that Buddy is actually a multi-million-dollar guy. He has this business that makes millions and millions of dollars every year making, guess what? Rope, right? Probably some of you, if you're farmers, have used some of Buddy's ropes. It's possible. So I'm talking to Buddy, and I realize that this really unassuming man is a millionaire, and he's selling ropes for $7 to these kids. And we're talking, and Buddy he's a Christian, and he starts to tell me this story, and I thought it was really appropriate for my sermon today. So I want to tell you guys this story because I want you to not hear that this is about rich and poor. This is about the heart. See, Buddy had been, Katie down here, had been asking him to come and do their fair for years, and Buddy just kept saying no because he was booked out. He's a millionaire, he just chooses where he wants to go and does what he wants to do. And so he's talking to him, and they keep asking him year after year. And Buddy finally says, okay, hey, I'll do it. He said, I didn't even know why I said it. I don't know if I felt guilty or if I was just supposed to or what. So he said yes, and Buddy comes out and sets up his thing, and he's doing the deal with kids and talking to them. And this little boy comes out, and the little boy builds a rope for $7, and then he just stays there all day, asking Buddy questions. How do you do this? Why is that? What do you do? Where are you going to eat lunch today? Right? I mean, just asking Buddy a million questions. And Buddy said he'd answer him, he'd talk to him. And Buddy finally was like, well, the kid, it was time to go home. And the kid asked me if I had a card. So I gave the kid my card, and I didn't think anything of it. I said until Monday morning when my phone rang, because the card had a 1-800 number on it, right? And he said, the kid called me, and he would ask me more questions. And he started calling me every single day to talk to me, right? The owner of this huge business, and his kid's calling him. And his wife even gets mad at him and tells Buddy, you got to tell this kid you're busy. And he's like, well, I'm really not, so, I guess I'll just take the call. And so Buddy keeps taking the call. Finally, a long time has passed, and he asks the kid, he says, hey, what are you going to be doing, the kid asked him, what are you doing this weekend? And he said, oh, I'm going to the state fair. Are you guys coming? The kid says, no, we're not going. We never do that kind of stuff. And he said, well, why don't you ask your parents if you can come? I'll let you, he taught the kid how to twirl the rope, and so he said, I'll let you twirl your rope at my station, and people can, tip you or whatever. So the kid asks his parents, and they say, we really can't afford it. We just can't afford the gas, we can't afford the tickets, we can't afford to get in. And so the kid calls back Buddy the next day, and he tells him, he says, I really want to, my dad says he wants to, but we can't afford it. And so Buddy said, how about this? You guys come up here, I'll pay $50 for you to spin your rope for me, and then I'll give your parents $100 for gas, and there will be tickets waiting for you to get into the fair. It won't cost you guys anything, you just come. And so the kid tells his parents, and they say, yeah, let's do it. All right, they all load up, and they go to the state fair. They go up, and the kid comes, Buddy, he said that he had been telling all the other booths that he was bringing in this famous roper, and he was going to be amazing. So everybody is there to watch this kid rope, and the kid goes, oh, he's doing this. But he ended up making $90 that day. He made $90, and so Buddy said to him, why don't you come back tomorrow? You guys spend the night, come back tomorrow, and I'll let you do your rope thing again, and you'll make more money. And he asked the parents if that was okay, and they said, well, we'll figure out a way to stay the night somewhere. And he said the parents ended up, Buddy started saying, can I stay with the rope man? Can I stay with the rope man? And his parents were like, oh, I don't know, we don't want to put him out. And Buddy said, if it's okay with you guys, I don't care. He had an RV. And so the kid ends up staying with Buddy, and they're getting ready to go to bed. They'd eaten a sandwich, they're watching TV. And the kid asked Buddy if he could change out of his overalls into his PJs. And Buddy was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And he had noticed that this kid kind of physically was a little slow. Mentally he was sharp, but physically he was a little slow. And Buddy said he just out of the corner of his eye caught a glimpse of the kid's legs, and he looked over and he said the kid had duct tape wrapped around his knees. He said, what's the duct tape for? And the kid said, just kind of nonchalantly said, I just can't stand if I don't have it. And he kept watching TV and eating the cereal. Buddy said that night he couldn't even sleep. He laid there in bed and he just couldn't get to sleep thinking about this kid and what was wrong with his legs, that he had to have them duct taped so that they would work. And Buddy ended up asking the parents the next day what was up with the kid's legs. And the parents said, well, Buddy, we're not totally sure. The doctor thinks that maybe there's some kind of muscle deficiency, but we don't have insurance to be able to pay to take him to see a specialist or anything. And Buddy said, so he's just seen a general practitioner. He's never seen any kind of specialist. They said, yeah, we just can't afford it. And Buddy said he thought about it, and he all of a sudden realized why God had put him at the Canaan fair that day. It was because there was this little boy named Robert who had to duct tape his legs to stand every single day. And so Buddy said to the family, said, listen, let me ask you a question. If I were to bring one of my employees up here, and he brought some papers up, and you signed them, and I got you the best specialist, and I pay for everything, would you guys be okay with that? We just get Robert, the little boy, taken care of. The family said, yeah, sure, why would you do that? And he said, look, I think I was supposed to be there that day so I could meet Robert. And so this family said yes. The employee drove up the papers, They signed all these papers, and Buddy right away got this little boy into the hospital in St. Louis, and they started looking at him. Doctors started evaluating, and they found out that his kneecaps, whatever it is that holds your kneecap from sliding off of your knee, that piece it never developed on Robert. And so they said, yeah, we can fix this. We'll just do a few surgeries, we'll fix it. And so Buddy footed the bill. He said it was in the middle of harvest, I think, which is like when he's go time on ropes, right? Everybody needs a tow rope at harvest, and they need it now. And so Buddy said he got in his car and he drove to St. Louis, and his employees were like, where are you going? It's hard. We need you here. And he said, you don't need me. This kid needs me. And he drove up to St. Louis, and they did this surgery, and they fixed Robert's knees, and they put him in casts. And the doctor said to him, now Robert, when you get home, you're going to be in this cast, but you're going to come back and we'll take it off, and when you're done, you'll get to ride a bike just like every other kid. And Robert, kind of with tears in his eyes, looked up at the doctor and said, I don't have a bike. And Buddy looked at him and said, you do now. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of the bike. You see, there are people all over this world who are trying to garner their value through power, through popularity, through how much they can fit in their pocketbook. That's not what God's interested in. God is interested in people who are willing to please Him. What I loved about Buddy's story is I picture that man someday walking into heaven, and there will be a group of people like him. Some of them will be old widows who gave their last 2 cents. Some of them will be missionaries who went across the seas and other nations to care for people that nobody else would go to. And some of them will be millionaires who just put themselves in places wherever God was willing to put them, and they were willing and ready to operate out of their giftedness of what they had. See, it's not about poor or rich. That's not what God's interested in. He's interested in the heart. And when you give Him your heart, you give Him your heart, He gets everything else. This morning we're going to sing a song of invitation. And I just want to ask you. See, we've been talking about +1 living, right? We've been talking about us investing in other people's lives and caring for them and helping bring them into a relationship with Jesus. And not just bring them here and leaving them, but walking alongside them and helping them really learn what it means and helping them invest their lives then into somebody else, right? But I want to tell you something. Nobody wants to follow somebody who doesn't have character in their life. Nobody wants to follow somebody who doesn't have real true character in their life. And I think one of the true ways to get character is to leave everything else behind and to give it all to your heart. Stop being focused on this stuff over here, the power, the popularity, the pocketbook. Some of you know that's you. You just aren't even willing to admit it. You know that's you. The real way to find that character is to become the kind of person whose heart is all about pleasing God. And that starts with a moment. That starts with a decision. That starts with this, like, I'm going to set a stake in my life. Aaron set a stake this morning. He set a stake. Robert set a stake a few weeks back. Melinda set a stake months ago, right? People are setting stakes all over the place. You don't have to set a stake just by getting baptized. It can sometimes be, I'm going to set a stake that my life, the motivator of my life, will be to please God from now on. This morning, I want to invite you, if that's the stake that needs to be driven into your life, that you would, with all sincerity, drive that stake. What I love about that, just let me say this and then I'll be done, and we can stand and sing. I love about this church is that you are surrounded by people who have set that stake in their lives. I look out this crowd and I see face after face after face. This is why +1 living matters so much, because I need you guys who have set that stake to invest it in other people and help them set the stake in their own life, right? This is about us helping the next generation and the next generation come to follow Jesus in a real way. This morning I want to invite you that if you need to for the first time, you guys can stand with me. If you need to, for the first time, set that stake in your life by choosing to follow Jesus, I invite you to come up here and talk to me. If you need to, maybe you made a decision to follow Jesus, but you look at your life and you say, my motivator has not been pleasing God really. I've let all kinds of other things motivate me. I invite you this morning to follow after Buddy, to follow after that poor widow, and to let the motivator of your life be pleasing God.